Welcome to the Double R Diner.
Anyway, welcome. I'm excited to be here and to share this new segment of my ongoing occulture series. Today, I will be unpacking the new religious movement led by Sherry Shriner, although some call it a cult. During my studies, we all were discouraged from using the term as it is quite pejorative in nature. But for the sake of this episode, I'll probably be using it sparingly. So let's get started. A few months ago, I was on YouTube. As most of us, go on YouTube, we're just looking here and there, and we see these things come up in our recommended. And for me, it was a 2021 Vice documentary that came up for me called The Devil You Know. This season was about a woman named Sherry Shriner. And this rang a vague bell for me because I'm like, that name sounds familiar. So as I watched this documentary, I remembered listening to Sherry Shriner way back in the day on Blog Talk Radio. And at that time, years ago, I was interested in shows about paranormal stuff, just general weird things. I've always been into the weird and the unusual. I was into Art Bell's show. So yeah, anything alternative was right up my alley. But back to Sherry. I recall her showing up when I searched for terms like paranormal, UFO, those types of topics on Blog Talk Radio. And my first impression of her was, wow, she is pretty out there. But, for me, someone who was into the weird, her special brand of radical Christianity kind of left a bad taste in my mouth, so to speak. So I just stopped listening to her and just went on with my life, just, as one does. But what I didn't know until recently, until I watched this documentary, is that Sherry Shriner went on to develop her so-called ministry, and that what she was doing led to the deaths of a few of her followers. So let me first give an outline of how I'd like to present this material. First, I'm going to lay out a timeline of sorts about Sherry Shriner and the development of her message. I'll also touch on other esoteric or occult or New Age ideas that have been appropriated or linked to Sherry Shriner's message. Second, I'll talk more about orgone, something that my sources didn't get into very much. Third, I'll give a summary of the events that took place with some of her followers and how Sherry was involved and what Sherry's response was. Fourth, I'll look at conspiracy theories in a broader context and compare this to Sherry's group. And lastly, I'll talk about new religious movements, aka cults, and internet religion, and tie this back into Sherry's so-called ministry. So given all of that, this occulture series will be at least 2 parts, maybe even 3. We'll just have to kind of see how it goes. So let's get into Sherry Shriner's background. The 2 main sources that I've used to gather information about Sherry Shriner are the Opportunist podcast from 2021. That was in 8 parts with an epilogue. And the Vice documentary that I mentioned just earlier called The Devil You Know. And in particular, this is season 2. I also listened to old Blog Talk Radio shows and have found old website materials plus social media sites. And then other topics will have been sourced from just regular news media, either academic books and articles as well. So Sherry was born Sherry Cobberly in 1965 into a devout conservative Baptist fundamentalist family in Ohio. She said she was always interested in biblical prophecies from a young age and was studying these already at age 12. She wanted to know when the Lord was going to return and what the signs or markers were that would help her be certain. In 1985, she went to Liberty University, for the listeners out there, that was an evangelical Christian, or is, I think it might still even be existing. It's an evangelical Christian institution that was founded by TV minister Jerry Falwell of the Moral Majority political group. Sherry went there to study journalism. In her second year, she was the campus news director. Sherry transferred to Kent State University, where she was elected director of the campus radio news department. She also had a job with a local newspaper there. Looking at my notes, I've just lost my place. Here we go. Sherry claimed that she graduated in 1991 with degrees in criminal justice, journalism, and political science, although Kent State says they can't confirm that she actually graduated. In that same year, she claimed that she moved to Washington, D.C. to apply for a job at CNN, but was rejected due to lack of experience. So she then moved back to Ohio and got married to a man named Arch Schreiner. One of my sources claimed that Sherry was 5 months pregnant at the time of her marriage. She had 4 kids in total. But it would seem that her situation wasn't ideal, as Arch was charged with multiple acts of drunken, disorderly conduct throughout their marriage. So, yeah, it could be a little bit of a tense situation at times for her. Who knows? She didn't really talk about her private life, so it's hard to know. Sherry also had visions in this time period and experiences that she interpreted as messages from God. In 2001, she took a course to decode messages from the Bible. This was something that became popular in evangelical circles due to Michael Drosnin's 1997 book, The Bible Code. The claim was that anyone could decipher these messages. Bible decoding software was available for anyone to purchase. While decoding began as a mathematical analysis of the Torah by Jewish scholars, this new decoding method uses an equidistant letter search. For example, making note of every other letter in a text, then letters spaced by 3s, then letters spaced by 4s, and so on and so on. It was through this process that Sherry came up with the names Yeshua for Jesus and Yahushua for God. And Sherry often used the shortened name Yah, and would always say at the end of her shows, Yah bless. And that would be like, instead of saying God bless, she would say Yah bless. So in the early 2000s, somewhere between 2003 and 2005, my sources vary on this, Sherry started her Blog Talk Radio show, as well as her own website, sherryschreiner.com, officially launching her ministry as prophet and seer. She gave herself these titles because of the codes that were crucial to her success in promoting herself as the quote-unquote mouthpiece of God. Whereas I stated before that in principle anyone could decipher these secret messages, Sherry wanted to convince people that only she knew how to decode God's secret messages, putting herself in a power position. She also claimed that she could tell through the codes whether or not her followers were actually supporting her, as well as claiming that this knowledge established who was in her quote-unquote inner circle, meaning the, quote, warriors from the Most High, end quote. I'll go into more detail about the warriors later on, but for now, of course, this encouraged and perhaps pressured her followers to make extra efforts to show Sherry how committed they are, or they were. And maybe the group still exists, so maybe they still feel like they have some kind of connection with her. So armed with this so-called gift, she focused her ministry in the beginning on 2 main themes. 1, alien and reptilian conspiracies mixed with New World Order conspiracies. And 2, Christian end times predictions with her own special twist. So let's go over some examples of things she talked about in her shows. And this list is It's just random. There's no order of importance. It's just how I wrote it down. She referred to underground UFO bases on land and in water. That the mainstream media was actually the CIA, but that they were all controlled by the reptilian faction. That Wendy Williams was a reptilian clone that malfunctioned. And I don't know if you remember this, when Wendy was dressed up as the Statue of Liberty and she fainted on her live show. She said that was the malfunctioning of the clone. But Sherry claimed that almost everyone on TV was a clone. So she had a very negative opinion about television presenters. Justin Bieber was also cloned several times, in her opinion, and Justin promoted 666 chip implants. She claimed the real Justin was possessed by demons. The Pope and the late Queen of England were also clones. They played a part in the larger satanic New World Order of aliens and reptilians who controlled the earth through banking, governments, and basically everything. The reptilians dominated the earth for thousands of years, still do. Humans made agreements with them by building secret bases for them and keeping the abductions hush-hush, and this all in exchange for technology. And that vaccines such as the H1N1 swine flu vaccine was the mark of the beast from the New World Order. And Sherry was against vaccines in general. I'll go more into Sherry's own beliefs and how she presented herself a little bit later on. But right now I'd like to play a clip. Let me pull this up. All right.
Blog Talk Radio.
This is from one of Sherry's shows where you'll hear her address aliens, reptilians, Satan, and
all
sacrifices, among other
images
things.
of enslavement and imprisonment, all rage and anger of death and hell, and the murder and the murderer's intent, the confusion of masculine and feminine roles, all portrayal of sexual perversion, including homosexuality and lesbianism, sympathy for Satan and the sorrows of Satan, association with the Nephilim and spacecraft, all perversions of the third eye through distorted and exaggerated images, perverted movements of the body and breakdancing and other forms of dancing. And we especially call for the judgment in this hour and the destroying of rock music directed specifically against children.
So this is, or was Sherry's little theme. Very catchy little tune. So, but I'm going to move ahead and get to the spot where I'd like you to listen.
The Satanists claim the Pentecostals as one of their own branches of religion. They claim the Pentecostals, the Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, and the others they may not outright own like they do those three, but they influence them, they infiltrate and influence them. Every county in every state has a group of Satan worshipers. It's all broken down into the local levels, folks. When you look around your city, you could have a cow town and have a Masonic lodge and a church on every corner. But I bet you one of the things you're going to have is a Masonic lodge. And when you have a Masonic lodge, a witch's coven for the women, or the Eastern Star Group isn't far behind. It's the sister to the Masons. The boys have their boy club, the girls have their girl club. And they control things at the county level, local levels, because they too work together to produce sacrifices for Satan. You know, they don't always have to go out with a stereotypical van and steal kids off the streets, which happens all the time, very easy to do for them. They work in a lot of ways you can't see. They go to the churches, they become members, teachers, Sunday school teachers, leaders, deacons. And they may find a child that's just full of light, full of love and Lord for the light. Seems like a really innocent, nice kid. And they will conspire and work together with all of the technologies that they have, the black technologies that they have, the ability to use. And one way or another, most likely, probably 90% of the time, because we live in an unaware society where we walk amongst us every day unaware of the things around us, they'll target that person, and that person will be dead within a year or two. You just go and plaster that area with orgone. If you ask the Father where it is you should go out and do missions to, don't be surprised if he has you off in the desert somewhere.
Okay, I'm going to stop it there. As you can see, this is a website that has most of Sherry's shows listed here with the transcripts. Not all of the shows have the player here. Sometimes you have to go to the actual Blog Talk Radio site or other sites that have the recordings, but you can't always get the source material just free. So the people that made the documentary, and also with the podcast that I listened to, there were certain things that I could not find that they had clips of. So, I don't know how that worked, that they were able to get that material and that I wasn't able to find it, because I could find it, but I couldn't play it. That was kind of the thing. So I don't know if maybe in the meantime they've kind of, removed things from the internet. I'm not certain. But yeah, this is Sherry's matter-of-fact presentation. This is how she always did her shows. She spoke about this. I think there could be the question of whether or not she really believed this. She comes across as if she really does believe this, at least to her listeners. So let's focus a little bit more on the alien and reptilian beliefs, because they are specific and they might be a little confusing for people. They might think, well, that's the same thing, isn't it? No, for Sherry, it's a different thing. According to her, reptilians live in the Earth's core, are agents of Satan or Lucifer. She uses those names interchangeably, and they often replace humans with their clones. Operating as agents of the New World Order, they also enslave humans, using them for various agendas, mostly involving sex trafficking and pedophilia, and they often kill children in satanic rituals. And the more these people get involved, or these clones get involved, the higher they climb the ranks within the New World Order. This message about the reptilians was also seen elsewhere with another woman, a UFO researcher, Peggy Kane, who was deeply immersed in the analysis of reverse speech and EVPs, or electronic voice phenomena, in the early 2000s. Now, reverse speech is a concept made popular in the early 1980s by David Oates. And it was purported that a person tells you what they really mean, or they tell you the truth in their backward speech. Sherry would use this method to prove a point about someone. If she felt that, she was going to really, drive her point home, she would play their speech backwards and say, see, they're telling me the truth here. And this is kind of, we could go back into like music. People were talking about backmasking in music, that for example, the Beatles or Led Zeppelin had all of these messages. Well, this David Oates fellow took this up and just started recording people or taking speeches from politicians, playing it backwards. And he claimed that, people are telling you lies when they're talking to you, but when you play their speech backwards, you're going to hear the truth of what they mean. So Sherry used this as well as Peggy Kane. I'm not certain if Sherry Schreiner and Peggy Kane knew of each other. I've never seen any type of reference that they knew about each other, but their messages were quite similar, which you see this happening a lot within these types of circles. You see a lot of the same types of messages coming forth. So the message from both Sherry and Peggy was that the human governments exchanged technology with the alien and or reptilian factions in underground bases, and that these factions kill humans by first abducting them and then feeding off of them. And we heard a little bit about this in the clip that she was talking about this. In a larger context, though, we can see the inspiration for and the references to these claims in the phenomenon known as the Satanic Panic, of course, and governmental programs such as the alleged Project Monarch that allegedly came out of the MK Ultra and Project Artichoke programs. The process of becoming cloned was called soul scalping by Sherry. She claimed that a serpent was shoved down a person's throat, whereby the serpent wraps itself around the spinal cord, and then Lucifer or demons would then embody the serpent, and then that is the process of possessing the person and overtaking them. Sherry claimed, for example, that this happened to Miley Cyrus, among other people, of course, but Miley was one that she spoke about directly. This was linked to, in her opinion, linked to ancient societies that used serpent and or reptiles in their art or symbology. Now, on the other hand, aliens are satanic demons who live in the Earth's atmosphere in another dimension. And both aliens and reptilians access the Earth and the humans on it through the use of portals. So when looking specifically at this aspect, we can see references to the hollow Earth theory in earlier esoteric literature, a few being Etadorfa by John Uri Lloyd, Vril, The Power of the Coming Race by Edward Bulwer Lytton, and the more well-known Journey to the Center of the Earth by Jules Verne. For those who are already familiar with reptilian conspiracies, the name David Icke and his book, The Biggest Secret from 1998 will ring a bell. And of course, Alex Jones was a keen commentator on the actions of the New World Order in his radio shows. The contemporary literary source for reptilians seems to stem from the work of author Robert E. Howard, who in 1929 published a short story in the magazine Weird Tales called The Shadow Kingdom, in which serpent men were referenced, and these serpent men used magic to disguise themselves, and they acted as imposters. It is considered the first sword and sorcery story, and of course, anthropomorphic serpents would also later be seen in pop culture, such as in Marvel Comics, who took inspiration from the Cthulhu mythos of Lovecraft. Doctor Who also had serpent people or men, and Star Wars did as well. These are just to name a few. Of course, there are many, many other references. So, of course, these aren't new ideas. These are old ideas have been around for a long time, especially with the serpent. Serpent concept is ancient, but Sherry assimilated all of these and adjusted these and tweaked them to her own particular worldview. And to note, Sherry did mention David Icke, but said that, of course, that he was off base with his message. Pardon me. He was not, wasn't on the right track. So moving to the second main theme that Sherry focused on, that of end times prophecy, from what I can conclude from the things that I've heard Sherry talk about, as well as my other sources, Sherry's eschatology seems to be leaning towards dispensational premillennialism. And all of these millennialist streams of thought are quite involved and complex, but I'm going to put it just really simple and basic here for the listeners. In this version of millennialism, there's a rapture where believers are taken to heaven. Then there's a tribulation period where the Antichrist reigns on earth. After that, the second coming of Christ happens. There's a 1,000-year peaceful reign of Christ in this period. And then everything ends with the judgment of Satan. That's the basic bare bones of this type of thinking about eschatology. There's also another idea coming from the book of Revelation called the 144,000, which can also be interpreted differently by religious scholars. But for Sherry, in this case, her idea of this group is very specific, and it's tied up in her claims of her special mission on Earth. So let's unpack this. Getting back to Sherry's inner circle that was comprised of the, quote, warriors from the Most High, end quote, Sherry claimed that these members, along with herself, were faction 4 of the 144,000 elect people on Earth, but these people were special, and she called herself and these elect members, quote, angels in the flesh, end quote, meaning literally that these elect people were once angels and had been sent to Earth by God, or Yah, as she called it, to be warriors that would fight against Satan. Let me show you here a website of hers. Here you can see what is faction 4. She goes into describing the factions of the New World Order. There are 3 factions. One is the rich international bankers and the Rothschild groups. I'm going to say Rothschild in the American way of saying it. I know the Europeans don't say it this way, but just humor me for now. Faction 2 consists of those involved with the secret societies and corporations such as the Rockefeller groups. Faction 3 is the alien agenda, which includes the New Age and fringe groups, hybrids, walk-ins, soul scalpers, and the soul scalped, shapeshifters, etc. And now faction 4, this is her addition, a fragment of the 144,000 who are going forth in exploits to defeat the armies of the man of sin, which is, of course, Lucifer, when he arrives. Oh, sorry, man of sin is the Antichrist. Pardon me. Not a part of the New World Order. As you can see here, it's a resistance group, the Lord's warriors, and it's fighting against the 2 different enemies, man and beasts. As you can see, she goes into great detail here about humans are useful pawns to establish one and implements Satan's New World Order agenda around the world in anticipation for his arrival and dictatorship or theocratic rule. When he arrives, he fully intends on taking over all aspects with his own alien council, etc., etc. This is coming from sherryschreiner.net, International Orgone Network, the Bible Codes, and Orgone. We're going to get into Orgone in just a second, but let me stop sharing this. So Sherry claimed on several different occasions, at least 10 that I can find through doing the research that I did in her shows, she claimed to know that when the end times would begin. But every time her predictions failed, she would say that there's been some delays or that the enemy's plans had changed due to her and her warriors' actions. It was important that they do the work that was necessary, as Faction 4 was one of the first groups that would be sent back to heaven during the end times. And these warriors were to fight with a substance known as orgone. And we just heard this mentioned in the clip, and we just saw this in her little post on the internet site. So let's go into this tangent. Let's talk about orgone. Do you know anything about orgone, Jason? Okay. So for the listeners who might not, we're going to have to talk about Wilhelm Reich to start out with, because that's where this came from. Wilhelm was born in 1897 in what is now known as the Ukraine. After World War I, he studied medicine in Vienna and became a member of the Vienna Psychoanalytic Association, as well as the vice director of Sigmund Freud's outpatient clinic. This clinic offered treatment for patients at a reduced cost or for free in some cases. Around this time, he began to develop a theory about why psychic disorders came to be. His view was that social evils, such as moralistic or political oppression and poor economic situations due to materialistic capitalism, led to an unhealthy situation for many people. In particular, Wilhelm asserted that a healthy sex life is a basic requirement for a person's health and in turn for a healthy society. These ideas were not accepted within his professional circles, which were very conservative, and his issues in Austria led to where he this was part of the empire in Austria at that time, led to Wilhelm moving to Norway, where he began investigating whether the human orgasm held some kind of bioelectrical discharge that led to relaxation of the body. At the same time, and by chance, he discovered what he called bions when examining protozoa under a microscope. And these are vesicles, and vesicles are like little cellular containers that, according to Reich, were glowing bright blue. And he ascertained that this represented the stage between non-living and living substances, and that these bions were the basic requirement for the origin of life. So, pardon me, in a few years' time after that, he moved to the United States in 1939. And there he began to develop the idea that bions come alive by absorbing atmospheric energy, and that this could be measured. This energy he called orgone, and that's a portmanteau of the words orgasm and ozone. So he put orgasm and ozone together and came up with orgone. Developing his theory about bions, he claimed that there were two kinds, blue and red. The red ones he called T. bacilli, and the T is standing for the word Tod, or death in German. He concluded that when orgone energy levels lower in cells through the process of aging or through injury, T. bacilli begins to form in the cells. Orgone energy or orgone radiation would be the answer to weaken the T. bacilli and cure diseases such as cancer. He constructed what he called orgone accumulators, which were boxes that people could sit inside of, made out of wood or cotton and steel plates. The orgone energy penetrates the layers and stays inside the box where the orgone radiation accumulates. And this is what Tommy and I were talking about in the Tier 3 discussion about William Burroughs building his own orgone accumulators. We touched on this actually during that conversation. Anyway, Wilhelm claimed that he succeeded in curing lab mice of cancer, as well as documenting a human patient's healing process in which orgone energy shrank a cancerous tumor. And Reich was also still developing his theory about the orgasm in connection to orgone energy, and published the book called, pardon me, let me look at my notes here, The Function of the Orgasm in 1942, and another book called Character Analysis, The Sexual Revolution in 1946. In his opinion, mental and physical disorders are caused by the restriction of sexual gratification throughout one's life. In his opinion, people tap into orgone energy when they experience post-orgasm bliss or that sense of well-being, forbidding the natural expression of one's sexuality by social or religious institutions, as well as the lack of basic human needs such as housing or enough space to feel free and unrestricted, resulted in what he called, quote, an emotional plague, end quote. Reich was particularly critical of the patriarchal religious system and the rise of overcrowded, sometimes violent, polluted, industrial modern cities or societies. Additionally, an environment that used nuclear radiation in an irresponsible or excessive manner could produce what Reich called deadly orgone radiation, which was the opposite of orgone energy. It was around this time that the beat poets found out about Reich and the orgone accumulator, and that, William Burroughs also claimed, as an aside, that the accumulator could cause spontaneous orgasms. So that was, also in line with what Reich was working with, trying to, build up this energy so that people could have these healthy releases, and that would contribute to their health and well-being. Another device that Reich designed is what is known as the cloudbuster, which he claimed could produce rain by manipulating and propelling orgone energy into clouds through long pipes. This has lived on in popular culture in many places, but including Kate Bush's song called Cloud Busting, and the successful music video in which Donald Sutherland portrays Wilhelm Reich and Kate Bush, his son Peter. By 1947, Wilhelm came under scrutiny when Mildred Brady, a freelance writer for the journal The New Republic, published her article, The Strange Case of Wilhelm Reich, where she mocked the accumulator and called Reich an, quote, unsound practitioner, end quote, who was a danger to society. Due to this article, Wilhelm's good reputation as a serious scientist and psychiatrist was smeared, and his image was afterwards largely distorted in popular culture. For example, phrases like mad scientist and sex machine started floating around. Later, Woody Allen's film Sleeper from 1973 offered up a parody of the orgone accumulator where a machine called the Orgasmatron was used. Another example is the, quote, excessive machine, end quote, where people die from pleasure, from Roger Vadim's 1968 film Barbarella. But more serious, going back a few years, more serious was the investigation by the FDA, or the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. Reich was accused of fraud, was sent to prison for 2 years, and all of his publications on orgonomy were destroyed, as well as the orgone accumulators that he had built. Towards the end of his life, Reich became more and more paranoid, also making claims that he was connected to elite government groups, along with the claim that they were protecting him from aliens and their craft. So that was dramatization of an event that purportedly took place. This was also from the YouTube channel LexJ432Hertz. And the quality wasn't the best, but it gave kind of a little good synopsis of the Cloudbuster, I thought. And I find this to be such an odd case, very tragic in a way, but also very strange because it's curious. I don't know of any efforts that have been made by other scientists to investigate whether or not these claims were valid. You know, they have scientists tried to repeat these experiments. I mean, you would think that if somebody's saying, you know, that they could really help cure cancer for an example, that people would want to know if this is real or not. There just doesn't seem to be any answers out there for the question of also why did the FDA destroy all of his books and his writings and the accumulators? Why did they go to all that trouble? What was this threat? So I don't know if you want to add anything to that. You say you know a little bit about Jason. You want to chime in? No? Oh, I can't hear you.
Sorry, I had myself on mute. No, I didn't know anything about like the background. I just knew it as like this ubiquitous kind of term that was going on in conspiracy theory circles because, like you, I was fascinated with although I didn't believe it, I was fascinated with listening to like coast to coast things like that because it was like a good narrative, like you just something to fall asleep to, like these people talking about Satan against the elect and everything. And Orgone was something that I didn't know. I was familiar with the concept, but the documentary kind of made it seem like it was her thing. But I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure that was like a thing with like a lot of conspiracy theorists. But I did not know about the whole orgasm thing and all that other stuff. Okay,
I contributed something in this case. Okay, so yeah. Well, actually, let me mention my source there. I have I don't know if you can see this. Yeah, it's all blurry. I found this online. It's from the journal Humanities. It's by the author Thomas Antonick. It's called Genius and Geniality, William S. Burroughs Reading Wilhelm Reich. And it goes into a lot of detail about Wilhelm's past. And this is basically where I got the history from. From what he was actually trying to do. And I think that a lot of times now, whenever his name is kind of thrown about, bandied about. It's as if he was some kind of weirdo, but it was a real scientist and a psychiatrist in the sense that, he would do experiments and he was, very concerned and, about people and their well-being. And yeah, maybe his ideas were a bit, odd, I guess, for the conservative milieu that he found himself in. But if you look now at all the other conspiracy theories about HARP, about the weather manipulation and stuff, I don't know. It all kind of fits into this whole same area of, could you actually do this or not? But these are, apparently the man had documents and he had writings and books and articles about all of these experiments that he did. Why aren't people doing this? But I don't know. Maybe many of the things were destroyed and maybe lost. So, but thank you for sharing what you knew about it. I was happy to have the feedback, so that's good.
Yeah, it seems like he was one of those figures like Nikola Tesla, where they're just kind of people kind of bandy their name about in their concepts, but it's not really exactly what they were intending. Especially with I was like, well, how do we get from this concept of orgone to Sherry Schreiner's concept of orgone, which looked a lot different?
Yes.
I was like, I'm sure you'll get into that later.
I'm going to get into it right now. Let's get into that right now. So, Sherry's views on orgone. Most likely, she heard about this from another group run by a man named Don Crofts, actually with his wife as well, Carol, who was a psychic. This was more kind of a New Age group. They headed this group called Etheric Warriors and called Orgone Organite. So they claimed that they were also followers or believers in what Reich was doing with orgone energy. And when Sherry first started out with her work online, she tried to network with Don and Carol. They called it Organite. She called it Orgone. But Don and Carol Croft viewed Organite as a gift for healing and prosperity. And Sherry, on the other hand, wanted to use orgone as a weapon. And this didn't sit well with the Crofts, so they decided not to associate themselves with her. Due to this, Sherry discredited the Crofts and their Organite, calling it a less effective junk orgone or dead orgone energy. She also accused them, of course, this was kind of Sherry's, MO. She would accuse them of working with the New World Order. So she'd insert that into her narrative. And she also claimed that only her orgone was blessed by Yah, and only hers was the powerful kind. So her orgone could dissolve chemtrails. Chemtrails is another conspiracy that she puts into the narrative here. And orgone could control the weather, as, of course, that was already kind of floating around that the cloudbuster could produce rain. So she took that and then tweaked that a little bit to say, well, it could just do everything, basically. But the funny thing is that Sherry claimed that she had only heard about Wilhelm Reich 2 years after she started working with orgone. She claimed that she found out about it through using her Bible codes. So, there we have these Bible codes again. Now, of course, Sherry didn't appropriate everything about orgone. She didn't say anything about orgasms or sexual health because, that didn't serve her purpose. So she just left all of that aside and just, she was focused on this orgone. She wanted it to as a weapon. Now, there are organizations that use orgone therapy still to this day. But Sherry, at that time, rejected these places as also being part of mind control centers, and she encouraged her followers to only use her product that she would make herself. So what was this, and what did it do? What were her claims about what this product could do? Her real orgone, as she said, was made out of quartz crystals fiberglass resin, copper wire wound in a clockwise direction, copper pennies, and aluminum shavings. And let me pull up a photo of it here so that we can get an idea of what this looks like. These were the orgone products that she would make. And let me get another, see if I can come back to this picture. Here you can see the wire and the crystals and the resin. This is before the resin is poured over it. She also has a recipe. This is again from her, another one of her related websites called BibleCodesRevealed.com. And she calls these orgone blasters. They're made in a muffin tin. Here you can see a diagram of how it's supposed to look, cross section of all the ingredients. And there's other, you can make it in other containers as well, but she generally used this this muffin tin and the resin. And here are her ingredients of what you need. And let's go down to the directions. You have to spray the muffin pan, and then you add everything into the little molds, and then you put the resin in. These are other details about how what you're supposed to use and how you're supposed to put it in there. And then let it dry. And of course she would sell these. So if you're mailing, then she would mail them to people through the U.S. mail. So she'd wrap them up and send them off to people. So let me see here what I'm. Okay. Yeah. So that was her weapon. She Christianized this in her message. In her opinion, this had the same power as prayer. It offers protection from all sorts of evil, demons, aliens, bad dreams. It can crash alien craft. It can burn clones. It can charge water to become a weapon. And this is almost the funny part of it. She would say, put the water that you've charged with the orgone blaster in the water, put that into a water gun. And then you could go out and you could shoot people that you think are aliens and reptilians. So, my first initial response would be to laugh at this, but this is what she believes. So, but yeah, aliens and reptilians hate the stuff. It'll burn their skin. So, I'm going to play a clip where she's talking about this. She's talking about a war, but these are the weapons that she's using. So she's not going out and literally with actual guns, but she goes out with her water gun. Okay, so, but anyway, it's good for everything, all-purpose item. And she also made little pendants, kind of like little talismans, I guess you could call them, out of the orgone, the little blaster thing. She would use different molds for that, and she also sold those on her website. She gave you the recipe. You could make it for yourself, but she encouraged people to buy it from her. She would, and like I said, she put them in the little muffin tins, and it looked kind of like hockey pucks. But they were quite handy, little small things that you could take with you. Her followers were encouraged to send donations so that Sherry could keep making these orgone blasters. Because as she claimed, the New World Order hates that orgone keeps demons out of people's homes and that it repels evil. She spoke of the Orgone War against Satan and his army, in which she and a few of her inner circle Orgone warriors, and she got the term from the etheric warriors from the Crofts, so she kind of appropriated that too, I think. And she would go on little road trips to different locations and throw out orgone blasters all over the place in order to destroy alien crafts or secret underground alien bases or any other, bad areas, evil areas. She claimed that they crashed over 18,000 UFOs using these blasters. And in the summer of 2012, when zombies were a trending topic due to due to shows like The Walking Dead and the films like Zombie Apocalypse, and also the real life happenings of human beings ingesting bath salts and things like that, Sherry took this on as part of her conspiracy message and claimed that this zombie apocalypse was a psyop, or a psychological operation by the New World Order or secret government, wherein a zombie virus was being used to kill off billions of people. And here she also stated that you could use orgone water in the water gun to protect yourself from the zombies. In Sherry's world, there was a battle between good and evil going on, and it had been for thousands of years, and it was a war for human souls. This is why she called herself a warrior and claimed that her followers were also warriors. And these were people who felt that they had a mission from God or Yah, and that they were in his army. And the warriors were people from all backgrounds and of all ages. So let me play it.
Welcome to the Double R Dine.